So today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on episode 79 of the series, and in the previous episode we saw a ton of events happening, such as Russia expanding and also joining in on China's alliance. We saw multiple North African nations join the AN, America took over the Suez Canal, China and Korea had naval skirmishes with each other, and also power rankings. So if you haven't seen the last episode of WICSO, I would recommend go watching it before watching this one. And if you guys do enjoy today's episode, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by the end of August. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump straight into this video. So to start things off, we're going over here to North Africa, and more specifically, we're going over to West Africa. Now recently, these guys joined in on the Assembly of Nations, and since then, they have rapidly been moving their way up in popularity, as many nations, not only in Africa, but over in Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and Europe, are all now pushing the agenda to have West Africa join the Security Council. You see, there is a ton of skepticism about the current Security Council. These 8 members all have something in common, and on top of that, none of them were actually voted into their position. They were all just automatically put there because they're considered the founding members of the AN. Well, the non-Security Council members want a member in the Security Council who wasn't a founding member. They want their own country that can kind of act as their better representative, since these Security Council members don't seem to want to listen to the rest of the AN General Assembly. So with that being said, a motion will be put forward to add West Africa to the Security Council, making there be 9 members instead of the original 8. And a vote on that is currently taking place in the General Assembly. But while all that's happening, something happens over here in Southeast Asia, and it's something that isn't too good here for Bangladesh. Because at almost exactly the same time, India and China start an invasion of Bangladesh. Absolutely no justification is given. Both of these countries just simply send their army across the border after staging troops on the border for multiple days beforehand, but India invades in through here, while China moves in from the north and has the troubling time of navigating this terrain. But once again, these two invasions happen at almost the exact same time. At first, it's only India and China doing the invading. None of their other allies join in on the war, because remember, both of these countries are in major military alliances with a lot of members. But to start off, it's just them, just China and India, who, by the way, are not on good terms at all, but yet they're both invading Bangladesh. Not long after, we finally see another country get involved in this war, and it's China calling in their ally of South China. This relatively new country will now send their army in as well, also focusing in on invading and taking as much land as possible from Bangladesh. They'll be able to capture this major city down here in the south, while over here in the west, India gets closer and closer to capturing the capital city of Bangladesh, now cutting over and taking this northern city before moving down and capturing this other major city and nearly encircling Bangladesh's capital. China will now move further down, seemingly acting a lot quicker to reach up with India's front line, but despite that, India is still able to capture the capital city of Bangladesh and also these other 2 major cities remaining over here. The 2 aggressors in this conflict eventually meet each other and aim guns at each other, but they aren't, hostile. They don't open fire or anything. They just point guns at each other, basically to say, back off, don't come into our claim. This is our claim. But while the push to capture the capital city of Bangladesh was happening, another country got involved in this war, and this time it was Vietnam. See, Vietnam here has been the victim of harsh aggression recently. They got invaded by China and then lost all of this land up here, which eventually became South China. They also lost land over here to Bangladesh. So they want that back, obviously. And now, being a member of India's economic alliance, they go ahead and go over to India and they're like, hey, you don't care if we join this war, right? And India, of course, is going to have no problem with that because it's another front line that opens and less troops that India has to spend. So yeah, they're not going to object to this. Vietnam will quickly start to invade and they'll go ahead and capture 2 major cities right off the bat. Bangladesh wasn't defending this area because they were defending their northern area from the, the first and third strongest countries in the world. Might want to use all your manpower for that. I probably would. But Vietnam's sneak attack from behind is definitely deadly, as they keep capturing these major cities, and eventually Bangladesh loses all of their population centers. And with this, the country starts to collapse and eventually capitulate, as 4 out of 5 of their neighbors seemingly attack them without justification. Bangladesh no longer exists on this map, and it's as easy as that. A very, very old country is now gone. Let's go ahead and see how these nations divide up Bangladesh. And don't forget the nature of this war. India and China attacked at relatively the same time. Is it a coincidence, or is there something else? And in this treaty here, we can see exactly how Bangladesh is divided up. India is going to be the country to get the most land out of this war, as they also take over some of the more important areas and some of the more populated areas. If we go ahead and take a look at the major cities map, you can see that they went ahead and got around 7 new major cities in their country, which is definitely a big deal here. But aside from that, we can also see that Vietnam got a healthy serving of land, taking over all of the southern Myanmar area. And then moving up to the 2 Chinese allies, they actually got the least amount of land out of this war. So we have South China getting these 2 provinces over here and China getting these 2 provinces up here. When it's all said and done, these are the new borders of Southeast Asia. And just like that, like I said, one of the oldest countries in the world is just gone. Well, not one of the oldest, but one of the older countries in the world. Yeah, gone. Eaten up by some stronger nations around them. But something notable about this country is that they were a fascist country, so that might have something to do with it, who knows. But now leaving this region and heading straight back over to West Africa, the vote in the Assembly of Nations has just occurred, and the General Assembly of the Assembly of Nations, which is all the countries that aren't the Security Council countries, but also the Security Council members do have a vote in the General Assembly. It's just that there's kind of 2 levels to it. So there's the General Assembly, which is the parliament of all the countries, and then there's the Security Council, who can also vote on like legislation and pieces passed by the General Assembly. But anyway, the General Assembly, like I was saying, has just passed West Africa's bid to become a Security Council member. And it wasn't particularly close either. A majority of the countries in the world are in support of adding West Africa to this Security Council. They will be the first country, if the Security Council votes in favor of it, to join the Security Council rather to be one of the founding members of it. So now, like I was just saying, it goes to the Security Council to be voted on, and these 8 members will have a choice to make. Do they want to add West Africa to their circle, or do they want to just keep it amongst themselves? Well, just as the vote was planned on happening, a war breaks out, like the day before. American tanks begin to roll into the Gold Country, swiftly taking over the capital city and capturing a major city over here in the northeast. And also, Mexican tanks cross the border and start to invade into the Gold Country. As if history were to be repeating itself once more, the Gold Team is quickly overwhelmed by their surrounding neighbors, as members of the 3-Point Star Alliance swiftly move in and take over complete control of the country and force the hand of this government to go ahead and sign a peace treaty with these 2 governments, one that will eradicate the Gold Country from existence and simply annex it into both America and Mexico. So let's go ahead and see what that treaty looks like. And in this treaty here, we can see that this country gets pretty much split into 2. I'm not really too sure which country got more land. It looks pretty even to me, but America will be annexing this northern portion and Mexico will be getting this southern portion right here. And also what we have happening here with this peace treaty is something we don't see happen too often, but America and Mexico will make the decision to redistrict the provinces of the Gold Team. So it's really not even recognizable anymore. If you knew what the old provinces of the Gold Team looked like, you would understand why I did this. But also, they just wanted to redo the provinces anyway, because they want to have a particular border set up here, and that's what they've been able to establish. So with all that happening and being said, we do know that the Security Council vote was delayed by this war, but now that the war is over, the vote can be held. So America, Mexico, South Africa, Ireland, Greece, India, Tibet, and China will now all vote on whether or not to add West Africa into the Security Council. The votes go as follows. Ireland and Greece jointly support the idea in the name of clearing the kind of speculation around the Security Council. Ireland and Greece want to make sure that these other countries don't, think that the AN is just another one of those, Dutch ploys to take over the world. That's not what this is. This is actually an attempt to bring the world together. So Ireland and Greece jointly submit their claim and vote in favor of adding West Africa, hoping to show that the Security Council is not some above the law kind of thing that can just do whatever it wants. So that's 2 votes in favor. Next, we have South Africa submitting their vote of yes, kind of similar to what Ireland and Greece said, but just not jointly stated with them. Tibet will also vote in favor of adding West Africa. So that's already 4 out of 8 of the votes, meaning that all they need is 1 more vote to go ahead and add West Africa into this thing. So now it's time for the rest of the gang to vote. Starting off with America. They vote no. And following their vote of no, Mexico also votes no. Then China votes no. We now have 4 yes votes and 3 no votes. And in order for this to pass in the Security Council, they'll need a majority of votes. There's 8 members, so you need 5 votes for that majority. And it all comes down to India. If they vote yes, West Africa is added. If they vote no, then the vote is canceled and it will not pass. India is heavily lobbied by other countries in their matter to either add or not add West Africa. America and Mexico are definitely forcing their hand on India. The Europeans and South Africa are definitely trying to get India to vote yes. They're explaining the reasoning as to why India should vote this way. But at the same time, India is a member of America and Mexico's alliance, and therefore there is slightly more influence from them. And as we all know, America and Mexico voted no, and therefore they're telling India to also vote no. And then there's China, who, India and China aren't on the best terms or anything, but China is also telling India that they should probably go ahead and say no to this. Tibet will abstain from influencing India's vote. They don't think it's their place to, influence India into yes or no. So the vote comes down to India, and at the end of the day, India will go ahead and they will choose to add West Africa to the Security Council. A shocking vote of yes, not only to their allies over here in America and Mexico, but also to the Europeans, who thought that America's influence would go ahead and strangle any chance that India had at voting yes. But as we can see, India has spoken, and they do think that West Africa should be added to the Security Council. So with all that being said, this legislation will be ratified, and West Africa will be added to the council. Northern Africa will now cheer as they have proper representation in the AN. Previously, it was only South Africa here, and they more so spoke for Southern Africa than they did for Northern Africa, and that's for a very obvious reason. But now that North Africa has a member on the council, it could be better for them. More particularly, these northern Mediterranean countries are very happy, whereas these countries are probably feeling indifferent and maybe a little bit hostile towards West Africa, considering they were just kicked out of their economic alliance in the previous episode. But all in all, the Security Council now expands to 9 total members, meaning that there can no longer be a split vote. You can't have 4-4 votes anymore. You can now have 5-4 votes, which makes the majority a lot more clear and prevents any kind of road bumps further down the line. With West Africa now joining in on the Security Council, it kind of clears the AN a little bit, and more specifically, it kind of clears the AN Security Council. Even though that there was, 3 no votes against West Africa joining, a majority of the Security Council did vote in favor of adding West Africa, which might demonstrate to a few countries that this thing isn't so bad, and that maybe these smaller General Assembly countries do have a vote and that their voice does matter. So with that in mind, more and more countries will now join the AN. Most notably of such, Poland joins. Followed by them is the Farmers Republic, both the Caucasus Mountain country and the Grey country over here, and finally this northern Turkish country over here in Anatolia. Now I do occasionally add batches of countries to the AN, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. This does not mean that they all joined at the exact same time. More than likely than not, this all slowly took place over the next couple of months, or maybe even years after West Africa became a Security Council member. So while I do add them all at the same time, it doesn't mean that they all joined at the same time. Anyway, we're now heading back over here to North America, where we have another event happening, and this time it is centered around the Unitarians. So far, they have seen extreme success in their new idea and their new identity. Unitarianism is flourishing across northern North America, flourishing under democratic values, enjoying great technology and strong stability. The Unitarians have set their country up as an example of the ideal country, the ideal civilization and society where everyone is truly equal and there is no corruption. If we had a corruption map, the Unitarians would be at number 1 in terms of no corruption at all. We don't have a corruption map though, so I can't really demonstrate that, but they are the least corrupt country in the world, which is absolutely crazy considering multiple things like their location, their population, which, is probably more populated than a lot of the other North American countries, their history, and, very divided history at that. So Unitarianism is definitely working, and more countries have interest in joining the Unitarians. This time around, it's Greenland. Now, Greenland has mostly just been chilling. They got invaded by Norway in, I think, World War III, but other than that, they've just been chilling. But they have also been watching, and they've been watching the Unitarians, and they have seen how their society functions and how great their economy has become. And Greenland, who is a country that, doesn't have the greatest economy in the world, and is also very sparsely populated, wants in on that money and wants in on those opportunities to be great. Greenland's government will vote in favor of joining the Unitarians, and there we have it. The Unitarians will double their size as they add Greenland and the northern Canadian islands into their country. So with all this happening, we're not done talking about the Unitarians just yet, because there's another country, remember earlier I said countries, not country, that wants in on the Unitarians, but there is a slight issue within this country, and that's that not everyone agrees on the fate of their republic. This central Canadian country here, this beigey yellow country is undoubtedly one of the most interesting countries to look at on this map, but they also have a little bit of an internal issue right now, one that is definitely noticeable on the world stage. And like I said, that issue is over the future of the country. Do they want to join the Unitarians, or do they want to remain a sovereign nation? Currently, it's not looking so good for the country. A majority of people want to remain as their own thing, but there's a growing number of both citizens and representatives that want to join the Unitarians as their country, as they feel, is better off under a better economy, as, you know, the main economic source of this country is like probably wood. So outside of timber, what else do they have here? Well, they have all the resources that Northern Canada has in real life, but there just isn't enough people in this country for it to succeed and continue to grow as an economy. And that's why there's a growing number of people who are calling to join the Unitarians. Now, those aren't the only two groups that are fighting within this country. There's also groups of people who are suggesting that the country is partitioned amongst its neighbors, saying that the more populated southern areas should go over to America. Because America has one of the best economies in the world, it would make these people down here who are more urban and, you know, less favorable of this upper area a lot more happy. There's also people who are saying that America shouldn't get anything, and instead we should just split the country into two. Alaska gets half of it, and the Unitarians get the other half. Therefore, the Unitarians aren't gaining too much power, not that anyone thinks that they're a threat or anything, but some people over here in the West more so align with the cultural values of Alaska than they do the Unitarians, which, you know, this is a new thing that a lot of people aren't used to just yet. Whereas Alaska, you know, it's not the exact same religion, but it's a branch of the same religion, therefore, you know, it's very similar. Like I've said before, these lighter shades of color here, like the purple and the lighter purple, that means it's the same religion, just a different branch of that religion, kind of like how Christianity has Catholics and Protestants, or like how Islam has Shia or Sunni. They're very similar, just kind of a different approach, sometimes different values. But trouble begins to brew in this country as no official of the government can give a direct answer as to what the fate of their country will be. And more so what we're seeing is that less and less people are in support of remaining how they are. There is at first a lot of people who are like, why don't we just, you know, stay how we are? We're fine with how we are. But those number of people are slowly shrinking, and the people who are either in favor of the Unitarians or in favor of partitioning the country are getting more and more numbers. But now heading over here to the Horn of Africa, we have a very quick event taking place, and that is the formation of the Heptagon Alliance. Yes, Heptagon, we are kind of running out of shapes here. But the gold team, the lavender-ish country, and the green team over here will all come together and form the Heptagon Economic Alliance, and it's basically just a regional alliance focused on this strait right here going into the Red Sea and out over here into the Gulf of Aden. Hey, that's me. Now, on the topic of economic alliances, we're going to go ahead and jump over the Indian Ocean over here to India, where they are also adding a member to their alliance, and this time it is the purple country down here who recently united together with the other country here. I've gotten a lot of requests to change the color of this country back to yellow. We're not going to be doing that because it's not really necessary. I think the purple sticks out, looks good. But they join in on India's economic alliance. As we all know, this country is already heavily integrated with India. They go ahead and rejoin the alliance, sort of, because one of the countries wasn't in India's economic alliance, but it was still being integrated nonetheless. Now they just kind of push it even further and officially join the alliance. But now for our final event of today's video, we're heading over to South America, where we have yet another war breaking out, but this time it's not much of a war, more so of a forcible invasion and annexation because it happens extremely quickly. So for refresher, most of South America is fascist. There's three main fascist countries here, and they're also the three strongest countries on the continent. Oh, there's also this little guy here, but he's kind of a puppet state of Brazil, and that's what we're focusing in on today. So the pink country over here used to be very big, but they got jumped by all of the fascist countries. They do still exist, and well, they barely still exist, and to put it simply, they won't be existing for much longer. Brazil is sending its army into the green country here, and after a few days of staging troops on the border of the pink country and prepping for an invasion, troops will begin to cross the border into the pink team and capture vital areas of the country, but more so, of course, focusing on the capital city, which is where a majority of Brazil's forces go as they capture said capital city, and with that, the country soon surrenders because well, Brazil is the fourth strongest country in the world, and long story short, you're gonna fall anyway. So let's go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty, and in fact, I'm gonna do the peace treaty on camera because I don't think I've ever done that before, but yeah, here's a peace treaty. They're gone. Yeah, it was a pretty simple war. I mean, we all kind of knew what was gonna happen. But at the conclusion of this war, we see that the green country is officially added into the Circle Alliance, which at this point is better known as the South American Fascist Bloc. The name explains itself. I don't think I really need to go into detail about that, but basically all 4 members of this alliance are also all 4 fascists. Yeah, the fascist bloc of South America. Anyway, that will do it for all of the events in this video, but there is just one more thing that is remaining to kind of mention, and that is that the dance between America and China, 2 of the strongest countries in the world, both 1B and 1A respectively, has reached a climax. And the result of this climax is a series of top secret missions that are being carried out by not only the governments of these countries, but some very powerful people who would be considered this world's version of the elites. Because the dance between America and China wasn't always about geopolitics. This entire time, it's also been about elites. Who can control what, and how much money can you make from that while also competing with the other. These secret missions will further be explained in the next episode. But for now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and if you guys did enjoy this episode of What If Civilization Started Over, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new, as we're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers relatively soon, maybe by the end of August, maybe by the start of September, but you know, whenever is better, and also the sooner the better, so help us get there by showing support. If you're not new around here and you're already subscribed, you can also help us out in various other ways, like joining the channel membership program that goes ahead and gets you early access to each and every one of my videos. You also get access to member-only portions of the Discord server, as well as members-only community posts, which help determine content sometimes, as well as, you know, just general opinions on shaping the channel. So you definitely get a lot more access with the membership. But apart from the memberships, you can also leave a like on this video, leave a comment with your input and suggestions in the comments below, and share the channel with anyone who you might find it interesting. Once again, thank you all so much for watching this episode, and I'll see you all in the next episode, which is episode 80. Kind of crazy. We're almost there. And of course, thank you to all our super fans. This includes Serminator, Static FN, Jazzy Jerboa, Turn Mapping, CTG on YT, Omega the YouTuber, Vista Napper, Garbage Trucks, AdizzPro, WICSO, 7353, Gamer, RS, Australian Geoball Mapping, Augusto, Norwegian, Gail Martinez, Frizioid, Laser Taze, Pablo Sigma Cat, Toad 45, Death Strider X, and DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.